Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're plunging into something really vital, nursing leadership.
Mm.
And maybe you think, well, leadership, that's for managers,
Yeah,
right?
the higher ups.
But what we found is that it's actually critical for all nurses, starting right from, their undergraduate training.
Absolutely. Think about it on a busy ward.
Yeah.
A situation happens,
Yeah.
and a brand new nurse might need to step up, coordinate. That's leadership.
Right there in the moment. And it really impacts care quality, patient outcomes.
Hugely.
Mm.
And poor leadership, it can actually lead to patient harm. The stakes are high.
Wow.
And the pressure is only increased, especially, post-COVID.
I bet.
So new grads are often expected to take on these roles, maybe faster than before.
So they need the skills.
Exactly. But the good news is these skills can be developed. They can be taught.
Okay, that's encouraging.
And our main source for this deep dive is a big systematic review.
Okay, so pulling lots of studies together.
Precisely. Yeah. Really rigorous. It looked at 19 different studies, all focused on interventions to build these leadership skills in undergrad nursing students.
19 studies. So after going through all that research, what did you find? Did these programs, these interventions actually work?
Yeah, that's the core question, isn't it? And what's fascinating is, despite the variety in the programs,
Hmm.
they generally showed positive, significant impacts. They are effective.
Really?
Consistently. Pretty much, yeah. These programs, they really move the needle. It shows that targeted training works.
Okay, that's great news. So let's unpack that a bit. What did these successful interventions actually look like? Any common threads?
Well, many used established frameworks, like Koos's and Posner's 5 practices model came up quite a bit.
Okay, familiar territory for leadership training.
Right. It gives a structure, inspiring, challenging, enabling others.
Hmm.
And they looked at different styles, too. Self-leadership, transformational leadership, shared leadership were common.
So not just one type of leader.
Exactly. And while some happened in clinical settings, most were actually non-clinical. But they covered theory, practice, clinical links, even community stuff.
Interesting. Now, what really caught my eye was the student perspective. How involved were they? And, what did they think?
Oh, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
Students reported really high satisfaction, especially with things that were participant-driven.
Like what?
Things like student-led conferences
Yeah.
or these dedicated education units.
Yeah.
They often said they felt, well prepared afterwards.
That makes sense. Active learning.
But here's the kicker.
Yeah. Oh.
While they love doing these activities, only one of those 19 studies actually involved students in designing the program.
Only one
Yeah.
out of 19.
Yep. Think about that potential, right?
Yeah.
Co-creating these things with the learners.
That's a huge insight. So students thrive on being active participants, not just passive listeners.
Exactly.
And that preference for participant-driven learning, it sets up this really cool example we found, doesn't it? The mask ed role play.
Oh, yeah, this was brilliant, really innovative.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so picture this. A live actor wearing a realistic mask playing an older patient.
Okay.
And they suddenly start showing stroke symptoms right there in front of the students.
Wow, intense.
Totally. And the students had to make clinical decisions fast, in real time, using a response system, kind of like Kahoot.
So learning by doing under pressure,
Yeah.
very different from a lecture.
Completely different. Active decision-making.
So did it work? Did that intensity translate into better learning?
Absolutely. The students who did this mask ed simulation, they showed measurable improvements.
In what areas?
Things like identifying stroke symptoms faster, knowing the right diagnostic tests.
Yeah.
They actually did better than previous groups who hadn't had it.
Fantastic. It really proves the point, doesn't it? Engaging, interactive, participant-driven learning builds those critical skills.
It aligns perfectly with what the students themselves valued in that bigger view.
Right.
So the mask ed thing is a great example of how this kind of learning works so well. But going back to the systematic review itself, there was one more key takeaway, sort of a what's next.
Okay.
While it confirmed these interventions are effective overall,
Yeah.
it also pointed out a need for, let's say, stronger research methods in the future.
Guess so.
Specifically, more use of things like randomized controlled trials, or RCTs.
Ah, the gold standard. Comparing groups.
Exactly, to really figure out which specific approaches work best and why. We know they work generally, but we need more detail on the most effective parts.
That makes sense. Refining the approach. So for you listening, maybe think about this.
Yeah.
How can these ideas about effective, really participant-driven learning, like that massed ed example, how could that spark innovation in teaching or training in your field, wherever practical skills and sharp decision-making are crucial?
Yeah, it's definitely got broader applications.